evening. I'm Sister Catherine Ryan. I'm the director of Maryville, and I'm pleased to be with you tonight in our segment of Maryville Cares. We are delighted to be part of Cable Access Network Television 21 in this live interactive show, and we are also streaming online at cantv.org/hotline. This evening, we want to speak about sports and how they help children. So we're speaking to you parents, grandparents, each of you who are helping raise children and guide children, and talking about the benefits of sports tonight, how you can help your children choose the sports that are best for them, and what some opportunities are. So tonight I'm delighted our guest is Kim Williams. Kim is our director of CYO at Maryville. We'll tell you about that a little later in the show, but this is our opportunity to talk about why sports can be very good for your children. If you have a question, please call the number that's at the bottom of the screen, 312-738-1060. And now, I'd like to turn to you, Kim. Kim, would you just mention for a moment how many years you've been involved as a coach and director of sports?
For CYO, my first day of work was August 1st, 1987. So this is my 30th year.
So I think Kim knows of what she speaks, but we'll hear more about her background as we move on in the program. Kim, can you start us off by helping parents and family members think about what are the benefits for children to participate in sports? Why should they be in sports?
That's a great question. Personally speaking, for me, that's the one thing that helped keep me whole when I was coming up as a little girl. My mom was a huge proponent of us playing sports. I played multiple sports. And so when I look at today's society especially, there are so many challenges for our young people out there. And I think it's really important that through sports, they can learn socialization skills. They can learn how to communicate effectively with one another, with whether it's a young person or an adult or their coaches, their peers. They can learn how to cope with successes and failures, because sometimes in life, there are difficult moments that our young people don't always know how to handle. So I think when they're participating in sports, it gives them definitely a better understanding on how to do that. Obviously, for reasons the physical aspects of sports are numerous. You know, we always talk about how we don't want our kids to have sugary drinks and eat fast food and all that. And so I always try, when I do a lot of clinics, to talk to parents and talk to kids about healthy eating and things that drink a lot of water, because your brain is 90% water. So most kids don't understand that. So we talk to them about how to be healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, and more importantly, I shouldn't say more importantly, and also psychologically, because we don't get to support, a lot of kids don't get the support that they need. So through sports and through teamwork, a lot of great things can happen for young people.
So Kim, you've convinced me sports will be good for my child.
Yes.
Now, how do I know what sport's going to be good for my child? Because not every sport is appropriate for every child.
Correct. And sometimes the sport kind of chooses the child. There are limitations in some sports, like obviously if you want to be a basketball star, coaches are looking for you to be 6 feet tall. Or you look at a sport like soccer, you don't have to be as tall. You know, they don't really care what your height is. They want you to be able to have endurance and stamina and be able to run and hand-eye coordination. So as a parent, I don't have children myself, except the 2,000 that I work with, but as a parent, I would listen to my child and try to figure out what their interests are. So if they're interested in indoor sports, outdoor sports, are they thinking about a sport like football, basketball, baseball? Are they interested in more individual sports, maybe tennis or golf? Kids have a great idea what they want to do. As parents, you just have to listen. And I think also you have to network and try to help the kid find what in their area that they can participate in. Because a lot of times if you want to play lacrosse and it's not in your area, it's kind of difficult. So you're going to have to network a little bit with people with that sport so they can figure out where to go and what to do with the sport. But listening to them is very important.
And when parents say, I want to talk to my child about this, do you have any suggestions for how children are able best to hear it? Or how parents can see that their children really want to be talking about this?
Talking about participation in sports?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a good question. My suggestion to any parent, in my expertise, most kids want to do some kind of athletic activity. Typically, it's not always at like the upper echelon levels. It's more recreational that they want to participate in until they figure out their niche. My advice would be to let your child play as many sports as possible in their younger years so they can figure out what it is that they would like to do. So, and most kids, what will happen is there'll be a sign up at school or at their church, and they'll read that list and they'll kind of go where their friends are going, which is perfectly normal. And actually, that's how I got into sports. You know, besides my mom, I wanted to do what my big brother and my big sister were doing. So my mom let me tag along, and I figured out, okay, I like tennis, and I like gymnastics, and I like this, and I like that. And then as I got older and developed more friends, I got into other sports. So I think letting your young person sign up for what's at school is a great way to get them introduced to the world of athletics.
So, Kim, your experiences with CYO. Mm-hmm. We'd like to tell our viewers about CYO. Families may have many opportunities for sports for their children, and that's wonderful. But some children may not have other opportunities for sports, and Maryville sponsors CYO. So I want to just tell our viewers that CYO was started in 1930, and it was started in Chicago, and it was originally started as the Catholic Youth Organization, CYO. But it's not just for children of any denomination, is it?
It's you do not have to be Catholic. You can be, as long as you meet the age requirement, which is pretty much third grade through, well, right now it's third grade through high school. But I have run men's leagues and the women's leagues in the past, and I would love to continue to do that. So it's just an age requirement. There is no denomination. You don't have to be Catholic to participate. We have public schools at pretty much everything we do. There's no faith requirement.
And going back to 1930, when CYO was begun, it was begun in order to give children safe sports that would take them off the streets and away from the violence. Does that still fit today?
Absolutely. We see everything on the news, all the violence that our young people, even if they're not participating, they are witnessing it when they walk to school and when they walk home. And it's so sad. But having something that is positive and organized and safe is ultra important for our young people today.
So, Kim, before we get into the types of sports that are part of CYO, what if a child belongs to a school team? Then the child doesn't need CYO, is that correct?
That is correct, but they can still participate. Typically on the junior high level, junior highs have their own conferences and athletic leagues that they belong to, and those schools also participate in CYO. So they may be in a basketball league during the school year, and then they may participate in summer basketball with CYO. Both are perfectly optional.
And we want to say to you, parents, grandparents, family members, it's a good activity of sports that we want your children to have. So if you've already got that opportunity, wonderful. We're going to reinforce that in our discussion tonight. If you need some opportunities for your children, Kim is going to talk about the kind of sports activities that she oversees. And for a moment, I'm just going to tell you how to get a hold of Kim by switching to our slide that shows Kim's name, her phone number, her email address, and of course our website at Maryville Academy. So Kim, CYO, what kinds of sports are you personally direct? I know that CYO began in 1930s. The big sport was boxing.
Yes.
Are you still doing boxing?
No, we no longer do boxing.
Okay.
We haven't had the boxing tournament in about, I'm going to say 15 years. When I first got this position in 1987, I was the assistant director. And my job it's just it's bigger now. I mean, I'm doing the same type of thing, but with the boxing program, we saw participation dwindling because all the concussions and all of that, became a strong thing in the limelight, especially when you're talking about young people. We also used to do flag football, and the office does not sponsor that anymore. Not that I'm opposed to flag football, because that is non-contact. But there are a lot of leagues and conferences out there, so CYO does not really need to do their own league, because then it would just be duplication. And we want to make sure that sports stays extracurricular, because of course classwork comes first.
Okay, so what sports do you work with?
Well, we do basketball. Basketball and cheerleading are the two main ones, and they are year-round. There's something going on all 12 months out of the year with those two sports. We do some soccer. I am currently, my fingers are crossed that we can reinstitute our volleyball and our softball programs. We just had our big CYO cross-country meet this past Saturday at Maryville Academy. We had 413 athletes and 20 schools participate in that. And we also do track and field in the spring. So we have sports that are team and individual. So parents out there, it just may be your child that wants to come and run in the track meet, that is wonderful. Come on out. We would love to have you. You don't necessarily have to be a part of a team for cross country and for the track meet.
So I was just at the cross-country meet, not running, but watching these wonderful children and watching Kim lead that tournament. I want to emphasize, as I saw on Saturday, how much the children were engaged in proving that they could run these speeds and these distances, and how supportive many of the parents were. And that makes a difference to the children, doesn't it, Kim?
Oh, it really does. When I do a lot of camps and clinics, and pastors and principals will ask me to come out and talk to their parents at their school. The number one complaint that parents have is that my child does not get to play in that sport as much as I would like to see. And my response to that is, depending on the sport, some rosters are larger than others. If it's football, there may be 40 kids. So it's hard to, everybody has a position. So if you're a defensive player, you can't be out there, obviously, for the offensive plays. So the playing time is going to vary based on what the sport is. A sport like track and field, for instance, each young person that attends the CYO meet, they get to participate in 3 events. Sometimes those 3 events may take 4 hours to complete, because you're in the long jump or the high jump or the 100 meters or whatever. But because there are 32 events at the meet, it could take a while. So I always tell the parents that, if you're worried about playing time, just make sure that you talk to the coach and the assistant coaches, and even know what the goals are of the program, because every kid should be able to participate in that team. You never want a kid to join the team and not get to play. They don't learn if they're not playing, and they're not going to enjoy it as much.
That's true. And I think, Kim, you just gave the example of a parent talking about football. Mm-hmm. So that wouldn't be CYO.
No.
Because we don't sponsor
Correct.
Football. So the children, the point of our CYO is that every child who joins has the opportunity to participate in sports. And if children already belong to a school team on that sport, they're not going to be part of CYO because they have the opportunity. Am I right?
Well, sometimes they would. Like the cross-country meet, all of those teams that were at the cross-country meet, they are part of their athletic conferences for their schools, but the CYO meet is the city championship, so they come and participate in that. So on the high school level, it is correct. If you are, like the upcoming high school basketball league, for example, it is, if you are on an IHSA team, IHSA does not allow you to participate in a league outside of IHSA. So all of the high school players that play on their high school teams are, in essence, ineligible for CYO, because they don't want you to be playing in a club sport while you're participating in an IHSA sport. However, if you're on a high school volleyball team, then you can come and play basketball at CYO because it's a different sport. So the rules kind of change depending on the age and the sport.
So would it be fair to say, parents and grandparents, if your child is eligible for CYO, then your child will get to play?
Yes.
That's fair to say.
That is
And
very fair.
whether your child is eligible, from our part, is based on age.
Correct.
And whether, if they belong to another sport at a school, that school may put some constraints on it.
Correct.
But those aren't from us.
Not from us at all.
Okay, so, and again, if your child has other opportunities for sports, we are so happy. Because the point of our program tonight is that every child has the opportunity to participate in the sports that are good for that child.
Correct.
Right.
And in my opinion, every child has the God-given right to be able to participate in athletics. That is what helps them to develop. And so I think, because really for me, being an athlete helped me with my schoolwork. It helped me with relationships between my peers, my parents, coaches. My first coach was a priest, so it even helped enrich my faith. So I think athletics, it can take our young people so far. And, they just have to have the opportunity to be able to participate.
And we do like to work with faith communities for
Yes,
some
we
of the
do.
teams, not only faith communities, but we certainly welcome those kinds of collaborations for our children because we want interested adults, caring adults, helping as coaches on our teams.
Absolutely.
Which, by the way, Kim, you told me an interesting story about where our coaches come from. Would you like to share?
I would. In my experiences, 30 years of CYO, I'll tell you a quick story about myself. When my third day on the job, August 3rd, 1987, they wanted me to organize the files. And so I went in and I looked and I was like, oh, this is a huge job. And I started going through the files and my name was there, as a CYO participant from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And it just was so humbling for me because I didn't think about that when I was taking the position. I've always participated in CYO for all of junior high. And now, oh my God, I get to give some of those wonderful gifts that I received back to other young people. And so it was such a blessing. And what I see in this position is a lot of coaches who participated in CYO, whatever the sport, cheerleading, track and field, cross country, softball. So many of them come back as coaches. And it is so fulfilling when they walk in and ask me, do you remember me? I was in CYO 10 years ago and I was at whatever their parish was. And my memory's pretty good with the faces, not so much with the names, but I pretty much typically remember them. And I thank them for coming back and giving of themselves because that is so important. When you're coaching, you're giving a part of yourself and a part of your heart. And I think when young people feel how much you care about them, that's when they become their best selves and you get the best out of them as an athlete. So it's always wonderful when adults come back, past CYO participants, or they'll say, my dad coached me, and now he's encouraging me to coach. What a wonderful blessing. It's just such a wonderful blessing.
So we want to speak some more about sports to each of you parents and grandparents and family members. Let me just pause for a moment to remind you that you're watching Maryville Cares, and we are collaborating with Cable Access Network Television 21 and also cantv.org/hotline. And today's show is about sports and how they can be and are good for your children. Yes. And how you can help them select the sports. And if you don't have other opportunities, Maryville CYO is available to them in Cook and Lake County. So just so you know that that's the geographic breadth of what we can offer here. I'd like to show you again how you can reach Kim. Kim is our director of Maryville CYO. And now you have her phone number and her email address. You can find her at all times. And Kim, one thing that may worry some parents is the concussions that some of the football players have suffered, or other sports figures, certainly in boxing, which we don't do, in football we don't do, but that's always a danger if a sport is not properly supervised for children. I'm not saying anything about professional sports,
right,
but for our children. So what can you tell us about the current education of coaches to prevent concussions and steps being taken?
Well, the one thing I can say, really, training of our coaches is so important. Like for our CYO coaches, they obviously have to be Virtus trained. That is a requirement. The Protecting God's Children course is a requirement for the Archdiocese, so they have to be Virtus trained. They also have to have concussion testing. That is an Illinois state law.
Testing meaning their knowledge of
Their
concussion.
knowledge of concussions, yes. They have to take either the Center for Disease Control test or the Illinois Elementary School Association or the Illinois High School Association. All three of those organizations have concussion testing. And so if you are going to coach on any level in the state of Illinois, it is a state law that you complete a concussion course. And then we also have another course called Coaching Coaches, where athletes, they learn from their coaches go through the course, and they learn helpful hints on how to help the athlete become better in all aspects. But that concussion, that scares a lot of people and it keeps people away from sports, but it really shouldn't. I'm not going to say that it's difficult or easy to get a concussion, but they happen in various ways. And the coaches, as long as the coach is knowledgeable in how to deal with that when it occurs, it should not keep you from letting your young person participate in athletics. Kids can get a concussion tripping, so it's not.
But one more piece, I think, Kim, that you'll want to assure parents is that our coaches are taught to prevent the kinds of contact injuries that lead to concussions.
Correct. And that's, like I said, we no longer do football. In basketball, you're taught all the pivot drills and how to move. Cheerleading is a contact sport, so you are taught how to catch because you're catching other humans. Instruction is very important. You want to really make sure that you are very well versed in the sport that you are coaching. So my advice is take as many classes and courses in the sport as possible. But you also want to make sure that you have taken that concussion course.
So I think to our parents and grandparents and family members who are listening, we've just heard Kim slip in a commercial, that is to say a recruitment. If any of you are interested in being coaches for CYO, this is the kind of training you're going to have. One more chance to know how to get a hold of Kim. If you'd like to volunteer to be a coach for CYO, you might also want to contact Kim, because we do extensive training, as Kim has just described. Our children are our future. They're very precious to us. And we want to make sure that our coaches have, obviously, the goodwill and love of children, but also that they have the knowledge, the awareness of how we protect children while they're participating in the sports.
That is correct.
So we want you to be able to reach Kim if you would like to sign your child up for CYO sports, but also if you would like to yourself volunteer. By the way, Kim, how does a parent sign a child up for any kind of sport at CYO?
They can, the High School Basketball League is our next event. It starts the first weekend in December, December 2nd. So they can contact me at the number that was listed on the screen, or they can go on the Maryville website and the registration packet is listed there. That is for high school age boys and girls who are not participating on a high school team. That league is 8 to 10 weeks, depending on whether your team makes the playoffs. And we would love to have as many teams as possible. So please reach out to us. We would love for your kids to participate.
I guess I'm going to show you one more time, because the top line here is the Maryville Academy website. And that's, Kim, what you're saying,
Correct.
If parents go on there, they can find the packet.
They would go on there and there's a drop-down menu under programs, and they would look for CYO. And when they click on that, they will be able to find the registration packet for the basketball league.
Okay.
They could also call me.
Is it too late for a parent to sign a child up for, it's October.
Right.
Is it too late to sign up for CYO for a child?
No, it's not too late. Each sport has a different deadline. So if you were looking into being in the cross-country meet, I would have to hold your information for 2018. We just had that. But otherwise, for basketball, cheerleading, track and field, it's not too late. We would just pick up the phone. We would love to have you.
So, Kim, as a kind of a closing, perhaps, you've referenced this a little bit, but how does it benefit a child? What have you seen that children gain from being part of CYO?
They gain family. They gain faith. You will get friends for life. It will teach you so many positive things. I mentioned the whole how to deal with successes and failures earlier. But for me, sports is family, and you gain family for life through athletics.
Thank you, Kim Williams. I'm Sister Catherine Ryan with Maryville. We've been blessed to have Kim Williams speaking with us today about sports and the benefits for children. And if you need more information, please visit our website. Thank you and good evening.